I mean, there's that bass.
This is the most ideal, yet least appealing situation we thought we'd ever know. Used to hide demands for those we'd stand, but after this, we won't walk again. We won't walk again. No, it's no surprise that I'm so sunlight, 'cause you're the only one that brings me out, and there is no doubt in my mind.
So, I mean, that's the track. Let's yeah. It is a lot of people that are, it's like 4 or 5 in the morning where everyone's at right now. So that's, you're gonna be huge in Eastern Europe. That's where Magu is
That's
gonna.
what we want. That's literally,
Yes,
we
yes,
want to
yes.
go there when we can. The United States we may never be able to leave, but yeah, when we when we can leave the country and go play shows. We were talking about just going to Australia, New Zealand,
Yeah.
New Zealand,
Australia.
We were talking about just going to Australia, quarantining for 2 weeks just to play shows.
Oh, that's such a sweet idea. Let's all just let's just all head to Australia. We'll do a group we'll just buy a boat. and
Yeah,
head
full
up.
canoe.
Yeah, that is the name. That is the name of a track from the album. That'd be a full ass
that.
canoe. I mean, we could kind of quarantine on the boat.
Oh yeah, 2-week trip through the ocean.
Might be longer if we get lost.
Oh God.
That's a canoe.
So, just to kind of go through this session. So, first off, y'all did a great job of tracking. I love, it was really great to just work with stuff that sounded good. And I know that's a whole lot of Dave. Do you want to talk about specifically how you went about miking the drums? Because I think that they are very good. And drums are all about capturing them.
Yeah. So we could. I'm on my laptop, so we could go into. It's literally. I bought a house a year ago, and it's literally just a 8-foot ceiling living room. It's not a
With
space.
carpet.
Yeah, with carpet. There's carpet, but it's decently treated. But when just being a drummer of about 15 years or so, I know how I want the drums to sound. Before I even put mics on them, and then also working in live sound, I guess I've just thrown up plenty of drum mics to just kind of I don't know. I don't really I don't really do anything special. I just throw them up. It's hard to describe, but I do space pair overheads with some Audix ST 110s and just what is that, the D6 Audix D6 on the kick, and toms I got, I think they're Audio Technicas maybe.
Yeah. Because you bought those. You bought beaters right after.
Yeah, I bought those after. Yeah, what's his name?
Yeah.
Smashed them.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so nothing special or crazy, but I guess just working in untreated spaces for years, just learning how to kind of dampen stuff and place the mics in a way so the drum kit still sounds natural and big without catching a bunch of reflections. And yeah, I don't know. You guys made those drums sound better than I ever could have in a mix or a session. I can't believe how good the drums sound on this record, honestly, because they're literally recorded in a room similar to this size.
Yeah, I mean, I love the drums on this album. We could talk about how, because this is the people that watch are big old audio nerds. So let's talk about how that drum sound happened on the album.
Okay.
So, and also you've got a little secret sauce here. You do have some room mics spread out, and I'm definitely pulling a lot of info from there. So, like you've got
Nice. I was curious on some of them. I know like another track too. I think it was like Thief. I was just like because I moved the room mic around per track.
yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was like a ribbon mic or something, or then like I don't know. We just moved it around, and I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. So
Yeah, that's what I love about that's what's helping give the album like each track has this flavor because like that's what whenever I wanted flavor, I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to grab a little more from this room mic." Because they are a little different from track to track. Some of them are
yes.
like super clean room sound. Some of them are just absolutely trashed. I think there's one
Yes.
where it's like in the bathroom.
Yeah, the bathroom.
Yeah, the bathroom mic is
I mean,
it's a sensitive subject.
Sam, it doesn't work for
secret-
everybody
it's the
or
true
every
secret
song.
weapon.
But the first time I did the bathroom mic trick, I engineered and produced his band Cat Piss, and I had one more channel, and I just threw it. It was like old mic cables, like had to use one of those ones that's like XLR to quarter inch or whatever, like, and it just like scrounging for mic cables, and I just hung it over a towel rack in the tub, and like that, it defined the whole drum sound. Like the snare sound is that bathroom mic, so
It
like
really is.
that. Yeah, I know what you mean on some of those mics. Like sometimes it's garbage, sometimes it makes the sound of the drums. So
yeah. Let's see. So as far as and yeah, sometimes it's garbage, and that's fine. And as far as like how so first off, like the first thing that makes these drums work is Summer being absolutely insane and just like chopping every single 30-second note and lining it to where it works. And then it's not just about timing correction. It's about making the entire mix when you're doing like bus compression and like rear bus compression to have everything work in time and to get the pump working on the entire mix. It makes a huge difference sonically. Like even like outside of just like micro correcting like some sort of like latency error here and there, it does a huge
right.
thing. So first off, again, hats off to the correction stuff, and I'm gonna go and
I mean, that's I think the thing that drives me like to a point of exhaustion the most on engineering in my brief time of doing it is the micro correction, like editing stuff and like behind the scenes, like just intricate stuff. So like hats off to Summer on all of that, because it definitely shows, especially on drums. I mean, the whole record I love, but like I'm still astonished that the drums like sound as good as they do.
The drums do sound good. So I'm going to go into the fractal world here so that we can look at the session. Yeah. All right. So like just going through let me solo out these drums.
Oh, God.
Here we go. Dave's time to shine.
Is that a Pultec?
It is. Okay. So just to kind of we'll go kind of like bottom to top on the whole thing. This is how we did it. This is the secrets. So kick, it's just like a Pultec with like a good amount of 60, a little bit of 8K for that like CLA top end, and then a little 200 for punch, and that's like the kick.
Oh, yeah.
And then I tossed a parametric, and there's like one. I scooped out a whole bunch of 100, probably to let bass through.
Yeah, sounds about right.
And that's the move. And philosophically, I really, really, I'm not that much of like let's ring out the session and find where all of the bad stuff is and cut it out and all of that. I'm really focused on where does the stuff sound really, really good, and how do we highlight it? So that's like the governing philosophy. So yeah, just like some bottom end on the kick and some pleasant top. I've got this all gain staged on the inputs. The snare has some fun stuff happening.
Transforming it.
Yeah, so I'm using this all over the record. I really want I want the snare to sound like, fat and snappy. So I'm using these Kush transformer distortion saturation plugins, kind of like you'll see them all over the mix. And I love the way that they sound.
Yeah.
It just a little hint of the of that goodness, and
Yeah.
I'm letting it be pretty like pingy and have a lot of tone. So it's boosted at like 200. That way it'll cut through the mix.
I love it.
And what's that?
I love 200 in a snare, and I saw a video on Instagram like today, and this gal that was mixing like just instantly cut 200, and I was like no, and like I'm sure it works sometimes on some snares, but like I that's like an acrolite, and so on that snare, I don't know, I just love the chunk of a 200.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty like chunky on the snare, like all of the time, because that's where punch is, and then I'm doing a Pultec boost cut at 100. So, and I'm doing that on guitars and stuff, and I like to do that on snare so that we get like the very, like the Pultec boost cut is where you're just kind of interfering with the cue a little bit, so that you just get some of the nice little sparkly bits in a region. So it's beefing up the low end without making it overwhelming. And oodles of 1.5K. Like a ton of it. So that's the snap, and that's going to cut it through the mix. Yeah, and then I just high passed it. There is just a little bit of like a supporting sample in there, and I smashed it to death with an 1176. So that's getting like 7 dB of reduction on every single hit, and then that's just going to make the, kind of keep the snare consistent while still, and that's kind of like how I like to do drum samples in general, and I don't think I threw a single kick sample on this album. I kept it.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah. But the snare, I was generally throwing on like a supporting snare, just something that could be robotic, so that it's going to drive like the overall bus compression consistently, and so that we have that feeling of consistency, but tonally, it's barely in the mix. It's all just about getting this constant feel more than a tone. Snare bottom, kind of the same thing. Made sure it was phase aligned with everybody. A heap of 2K, a whole lot of 10K, just getting like lots and lots of snap out of the bottom. That's basically the name of the game. The toms, on my end, I did nothing, but Summer did the secret sauce on the toms, because Summer's a tom master, and then they just passed those toms to me. And then I touched nothing on the overheads and the room mics.
Wow,
And
that's wild.
But I do on the bus end. So
okay, yeah.
My methodology for drum bussing is I send all the close mics to a bus, all of the overheads, and then the room mics. So there's 3 pre-buses, and then there's a drum bus.
Okay.
And this is where like the bulk of stuff happens generally. And again, I'm getting rid of the lows, the garbage, like below 20. Another Pultec, bringing out like more of the like, and this is all of the close mics. So this is toms, this is the snare as a group. And again, I'm just looking for bottom, some power and some snap and some top end to bring out clarity, and that's on the close mics. What happened on overheads? Looks like just got rid of a little bit of nasty room tone and a pretty gentle lift that's taking place at like 25K. So just kind of lifting everyone gently. Just a couple of dB. A Pultec doing another little lifty. Cutting some 5K. That's kind of... and that's where I'm cutting on the parametric. And again, I kind of like to split processing through like a few plugins rather than having one do all of the work. That way, first off, I'm getting like a little touch of flavor on it because it's like, oh, I'm going to use a boring old parametric. And then I'll like do a little bit of Pultec flavor. So, that's why that's happening. And also I can audition things throughout it. It's also worth noting that this mix, the Pretty Cool mix, I guess full disclosure for anyone watching, this is the first mix that I did for the album. And it was kind of a mix shootout, like competition-y kind of thing. And I was like, I really want this gig because I think this album rules. So
No one. Just to let you know, no one else did a mix on it. I think it was like,
yeah, I think we talked about it.
we talked about it, but like
around
we
to
got
it.
yours back, and we were like, okay, like we were like, this is worlds better than mine, and like I didn't like sit down and do it, but I was just like, after tracking, I was just exhausted with it. So yeah, I'm glad you went into it like that because it definitely sold us. Like your mix killed it.
Oh, okay, cool. I mean, I would have done this anyway, but basically
Yeah.
the emotional psychological process was I was like, because I listened to all of the tracks and then I got the stems and I'm like, this really rules. This is a really, really good record and I really want to work on it. So a lot of these decisions that we're seeing on the final mix, there are like 6 sessions before this one where, because it looks really clean, you're like, oh yeah, there's only like, why are there only 2 plugins on everything? And it's because
Right.
there are like 7 neurotic sessions before this where I'm like, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try this, and I'm going to use this compressor, and I'm going to do this. And this is the end, which again, there isn't like a lot of, there's no extra processing on the tracks. It's just that the decision process is a few layers deep at this point in the session.
Okay.
And so this is, it's a result of that. And then this got to serve as a template for the record as a whole. So there's a lot of pre-work on this first single, and then it goes into kind of like Fun World. And I can't read chat while I go into Fractal World, so I'm just making sure that this is... yeah, the Kush stuff is a VST. Absolutely. Cool. All right. Back to the Fractal World. So, we're on drums. Overhead. I'm just lifting them up. So there's a clariphonic on them. Again, this is like a 40K gentle lift on those drums. Room mic. This is the fun stuff. Let me just pull those out. So these room mics.
What's that one labeled as?
Rename
it probably.
I might have renamed it, but let's see what we got. Drum room ribbon and drum room AKG.
Okay, so the AKG is the Perception 420, and it usually just sits about 3 feet away from the kick drum, just like faced at it about 3 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
And then the ribbon was the one that I was moving around. I don't know, on Pretty Cool. There's like a closet.
It could have been in the bath.
Could have been in the bathroom.
6 places it could have been. Yeah.
You didn't notate any of that.
No.
And
the dog is being requested in chat.
Oh, dog in chat?
Yeah, the dog is.
oh, we are all about dogs.
Lucy Gooser.
Lucy.
Yeah.
This is Lucy. She had an entire venue named after her.
Omaha DIY champion here, everybody.
Lucy is a legend.
She's got the championship belt for House Fest 1, 2, and 3.
Fuck.
But she's gonna be 13 here in April.
What a cutie. Love those dogs. So the room mics are the key to the flavor from track to track. So within the template, I'm using a API style EQ. In this case, the Kush Electra, which is it's variable Q depending on how hard you push it. Basically, the more you boost, the narrower the Q gets. The more you cut, the narrower the Q gets, which is a really fascinating way to use EQ. It's like why I like APIs. They're also like APIs are very pokey, but pokey in this very pleasant way. So it's introducing a little bit of, once again, a little bit of flavor, a little bit of saturation throughout the EQ process. And where I'm looking at stuff is in kind of weird places. 300, 550 in this case. I guess that's what I did. Oh, and like 3.8K, which are like in a lot of like traditional thoughts, that's like, oh, those are kind of danger zones, especially for drums. Like low mids, the straight up 500, but that's also where all of the musicality is, because that's literally pitched territory, like 300, 500. That's just straight up notes, and I think that sometimes there's a tendency to pull info away from those areas, but if you can find where to get it on drums, that's where you're going to get like the wood and the thwack and the feel for them. So
nice.
Again, these are,
that makes sense.
these are kind of trashy mics. Like they're a little bit trashed out to start with, and then it's accentuating it And then once that gets worked in to the drum sound as a whole, it just gives us something to latch onto.
That's awesome. I'm glad that the room mics weren't trashed. Well, they were, but they were used.
Yes.
Very useful trash.
Useful trash.
Oh, incredibly useful. I mean, a crucial trash.
That's awesome.
And then we just go to the main drum bus. So this is like the close bus, the overhead bus, and the room bus. They're going to feed into this overall bus. And again, I'm just clearing stuff out, bringing in a little bit of upper mids. And then there's just like a tiny bit of squeeze. Like a medium attack. And again, I'm doing like lots of serial compression, so there's a little bit of compression earlier on the tracks, and then 2 dB of gain reduction with an SSL. Nothing insane, but we do have a parallel drum bus that is getting absolutely destroyed. So
is that similar to like a crush? Like, is it like, would you call it a crush or?
Yeah, so I would so within like my blueprint for something, this is I call it the rear drums, because I do rear bus compression on the entire mix. So that's parallel compression applied to everything at the same time except for drums. And so this is parallel compression on the drums, but I dial it in at the same time as the rear bus, like in my workflow. So I just call this rear drums. And it is, let's see if I can solo this. With how this is outputting to video, I don't think I can, or can I? Not really. Okay. Well, it is a crush bus. It's so it's an 1176 getting absolutely slammed at all buttons in. It's catching about 10 dB of gain reduction, and in the whole of the compression scheme, I'm not doing fast attack compression at any point on anything almost ever throughout the mix until it's going to these 2 rear buses. So every little compression move up until these 2 buses is incredibly open and all about retaining transients. And then I blend it with just absolutely dumb gobs of compression that are squeezing it to death and smashing the transients, and then thickening everything out in like John Bonham style, just giant, thick, like smashed up stuff. So by combining these two in parallel, I'm able to control like how much detail, how are the transients going to pop out and grab the attention of the listener, while also getting that wonderful pump and smash, and then like again using an 1176. So as I push further into it, it's going to introduce distortion and saturation and make it more exciting. And absolutely punished. So that's drums. That's like how the drums are happening. So, you pop all of that into the mix. And like if I just take, oh, I'm sorry, what's that?
Oh, just my dog whining.
Oh, okay, just a dog.
Just a dog.
Oh, never just a dog. But like if I click this, so if I take this rear drum compression off,
Inside, but it changes on whether or not.
it's just that little bit of presence. It does just the right. It takes it right to where we need it to go. What? And then yeah, I mean we're looking at just like a whole lot of bus processing in general. Like if we go through kind of everything, and this is how I like to work. It's clean and it keeps the musicality of the mix. Like on the guitars, I've got some on individual ones, parametric EQs, where I'm just kind of cleaning them up. And let's see what's happening here.
Thank you.
There's really nothing exciting. It looks like I just basically, we've got a group of strats here. And I think that I just did an EQ that was good on one of them and then applied it to all of them. And it worked. And I love how you got guitar on all of this. Like, we've got fuzz guitar. You labeled them real nicely, but we've got 4 sources on that, 3 mics and a DI. We got a Strat with 3 mics and a DI. We got a Tele with 3 mics and a DI. And that's like how the entire album is functioning. You grabbed all of these. You did a great job of giving like lots to work with the guitars, and it really helps bring out a huge guitar sound. So that's just like tracking, and it also allows to do like pretty big pans. I'm generally going like guitar left, guitar right, and then there's still a center guitar and a center mic, so it maintains clarity, and that rules. There is a little bit of trickery happening. So like with this guitar, let's see if this. Yeah, so group solos. But so I've got this fuzz guitar that's panned hard left. And I make a cuz I like the idea of LCR panning all of the time. So hard left pans, hard right pans, and then dead center. And then I kind of like massage it from there. But one of the ways that I combat the like, okay, well, if we have something that's all the way to the left, how do we balance it out on the right? So I set up a left verb and a right verb on the entire track, and do like a little bit of pre-delay to separate it out in time so we don't deal with like big giant phasing issues. And then I just trash those verbs up and get pretty aggressive with it. And that's how I create space in the mix. So like a guitar panned all the way left is getting a little ghost trail on the right speaker that has like, let's see, in this case, 10 milliseconds of pre-delay on it to spread it out. So that's kind of happening in guitar world. And all the instruments. Hard pans go into the left verbs and right verbs. And let's see, guitar bus, I think, has some stuff happening. Mids. So guitars are basically untouched as individuals, except in a few tracks where it's like, oh, we need to carve up some space on them. But like 500 hertz, absolutely dimed. Like mids on those guitars all day. A little bit of 2K for some chime, and then a boost cut at 100. Oh, it's 60 in this case. Really, again, because you've got that tuned low guitar, it felt better to have a little bit of bottom on the guitar. And then brightened up top end. Presence up top. Another one of these Kush saturation things to give it a little bit of edge. And a little teeny tiny bit of bus compression. So just like heaps and heaps of mids is like what's going on those guitars. And then it's like bass. In this case, bunch of 100 for some booty. Cleaning out some mud. Very gentle bus compression. Barely moving it on the SSL. And then that's also just to kind of like do some gain control. And then this, again, from Kush, especially if it's something that's in that like classic world, I'm using a whole lot of Kush stuff. So this is like a Fairchild compressor. And that's grabbing the bass fairly aggressively. But again, like medium attack. But I'm driving into this pretty significantly to kind of bring out more of that like mid-range saturation that just exists on the bass in general. Because we got that fuzzy, aggressive bass happening. Like absolutely gnarly, and preserving that and figuring out that that's like what needed to happen on the bass, it kind of blew the entire record up. Once it was like, oh yeah, the bass needs to maintain its aggressive nature, and we've got 3 bass takes, and it was generally 3, I think, from track to track. We got a bass DI and 2 mics. Now, where we got into some neurotic territory from track to track is this was the unfun, unsexy part of engineering that I handled, was to make this work. These 3 bass takes. First off, in a lot of like, in some more typical situations, it's like maybe it would be beneficial to just grab 1 bass take and go like, this is the best mic for the bass to work. But like working with that mindset, it just yielded it when all 3 mics could intermingle because of its like cool mid-range thing that would happen. It just made the track work. So in order to make it work as a bass, these 3 tracks, I had to drag them to find the absolute perfection point where we wouldn't get phase cancellation or like mitigate it. So there's a whole lot of just like, there was a whole lot of the big zoom going like a little.
Big zoom.
The big zoom happened on these bass takes on every single track. And that was bass. And that basically takes us to we got cool synth stuff happening. Didn't have to do anything crazy there. We're just finding the soul of it. 300, bringing back a little bit on 500 to let some like vocals and guitars through, pushing up some 3K, brightening it up at 10K. Big giant lift with like a, you know, a real high shelf and a little bit of compression. And that's all, you know, all that the keys needed. But these are such cool parts. Little Beatlesy thing happening.
Sits on a really good range.
Just that little floaty circus happening over top of everything. Saxophone, always cool on every single track on this album. Finding the fundamental on it. A big old boost cut at 100 to give it some breath and some heft. Found the top end, it was at like 12K. And then a little bit of shine at 5. Big old upper mid-range boost on it to let it cut. Cleaned up some, you know, some of that bass region. Gentle compression.
We hit that sax, okay? You need just that sax part isolated. TikTok.
But it's so important for the mix to just feel
It is.
the breath. And then we just got into vocal world, where this is like probably the narrowest cut in the whole album. Just like notching out like a little bit of 2K, probably some room tone.
You say you wanna get fucked up while you're in luck. Yeah, you say you wanna get fucked up while you're in luck.
And, you know, finding mids, 500, lifting it out at 4K so that it pokes out in the mix. A big old high shelf, little bit of lift again, like the melody stuff. Once again, a little bit of saturation. Dynamic EQ to keep it tight. Basically, this is soothe basically throughout the entire upper mid-range.
Oh, so go and find yourself.
It just controls some of the room tone.
Because you claim they know better than I could ever provide. I'm used from the inside, but it changes on weather.
And bus compression like everything else. And then everything except for bass and drums, is going to this rear bus compression, and that is applied globally to the entire mix. And then what's sweet about this is you can see that so when the vocal's in, it's burying 10 dB of gain reduction, and again, like quick on the transients. This basically automates the mix. So after everything's balanced out, whatever is the most prominent thing in the mix in the melody is going to drive this compressor and act upon the mix as a whole around it. So now we can see it's like, it's the guitar riff, and now the vocal is driving. And then when the vocal ducks out, the guitar immediately takes over and drives this compressor.
I love that.
And if I take that out, it's, just take out the rear bus. All of the excitement leaves because there's also a whole lot of saturation, but also when we hear the interplay between vocal to hooks, it all kind of just fizzles out. So yeah, I'll play it again without the rear bus and just listen to what happens in between the vocal. Bring it back in.
Nice.
The mix comes to life when the vocal goes away, and that's just what's so cool about rear bus. Outside of the fact that it just sounds cool, it's that it makes the mix more musical. And it also spares the task of going let's automate everything to absolute death, which is also to say that there is a fair amount of automation in the end game. That's just finding what is the absolute coolest thing. There's some tom automation of okay, yeah, this fill is the fill. And that's it. That's the mix. Let's just that's a whole lot of nerd stuff. I'm going to check on chat. Are we still having fun?
Who'd we lose? This is awesome because I personally am just curious of what mics you used or what you didn't. So it's awesome to hear that you used all the guitar mics on a lot of them and multiple bass takes and
all the bass.
And yeah, and so it's sweet that you were able to use all that and make it musical and
yeah, your process is really interesting to hear. Genuinely, it's
yeah.
The bus version kind of gives it's always a focal point with that.
Yeah.
So that really does bring the mix entirely to life.
Makes it dance around a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keeps it interesting.
Kaido, I will totally take a listen to your track. That's why I didn't change the description. We'll get into the normal thing after this is finished up. So I don't have to change the description. Let's listen to the end, just kind of enjoy it. I think I used everything. I think the only thing that I just didn't touch was DI guitars. I think that it was basically fourth, you never have to piss off. I love what you do. You moderate. You keep the robots away. I rarely used the DI guitars.
Oh wow, yeah. It's always a fail-safe of mine to just grab it in case, you know.
Oh yeah. There was one that I definitely had to. There was a track where it didn't have a lot of guitars at one point. I can't remember what it was, but
I think it was Parents' House we were messaging about.
Yeah, there's
because
Parents.
we retracked that.
There's Parents'
Parents'
House.
Maybe you messaged for.
And Manic Pixie Dream Girl. That track.
Oh, Love Too Deep. Love Too Deep.
Love Too Deep. There is this huge breakdown, but there's only one guitar at this moment, and it's just this huge track on the album, but it's the only time on the album where there aren't like 12 guitars happening. So I was like,
I know what part it is.
What part is it?
It's the part where we switch back and forth between like that HM2 and that super fuzz from like that mid scoop thing to like that last breakdown before it goes back in. It's gotta be what it is.
Yep.
No, it's yeah.
Oh, the big swells.
Yeah.
Like just like
it's
stringing out.
It's basically the second half of that track, and it all strips down to like one guitar. I don't even think that there's a DI that like. No, I think there's a DI, and I just like I was like, this song is huge, this album is huge, this is the biggest moment of the album, but I only have one guitar here, and I think that I did like I cloned the track and then did like I like phase shifted all of it, and I think I made like 6 copies and slightly pitched them and slightly phase shifted them and put them like super wide and did the whole thing and wound up like making the one part like 6 parts and did kind of the opposite move and then it worked. But that was the only time where I was like, damn, I wish I had more guitars. But
yeah,
I still song rules.
Stack.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad because I would have never guessed that. We tracked this like almost a year ago. Like,
feels like a year ago.
Yeah, well, it would have been like 8. Maybe like 10 months ago. We did it in May. Yeah,
we did it in May.
Yeah, like 8 months ago. So it's hard to remember some of the sessions.
Yeah,
it was a weird time in life.
Oh yeah, stuff got a little weird. So, everything is so solid on the tracking, and that's to say that I can count on one hand the amount of times that I had to use like a weird trick. Like almost everything is the natural recordings minus like a snare sample on most tracks, and that's not audible. It's just like a feel. And then like it's all the amped guitars, all of the natural bass tones, all of the it's everything as it was. So it's just a solid recording, and that's why it was super fun to work with. And then it was super fun to work with y'all in the post game of we had the first mixes. Y'all sent really great notes that were just like actually good notes. And then I think that everything is at like 4 generations of revisions. I think there are 2 that went to 5, and that's really solid. It was just a solid experience to work with you.
Yeah, it was super fluid and awesome for being long distance and having 5 people, and wanted to make sure that everybody was okay with where it's sitting, before we move to the next stage. So I think overall, all those circumstances aside, like it was pretty painless.
Yeah, it rules. So Shrek, the guitar thing, I'll do like extreme pans. So like send a guitar all the way to the left, or a background vocal all the way to the left, or anything. And to counterbalance those moves, I have a left verb and a right verb set up in my but in my effects section, so that anything that I hard pan left will be sent to a reverb that's hard panned right. And it's got a fair amount of pre-delay on it, and generally like a wacky EQ, like it's no low end, like absolutely carved out to 200 or 300, and like no high end. It's just like up to 10K. So like Abbey Road, and
the nerd stuff.
yeah, it's the nerd stuff. So,
dude, yeah, this has been super informative on your end, because I mean, obviously doing mixing and everybody does a little bit of recording. At least I know these guys are digging into it more, so it's good to hear your process, and stoked to get working on another record.
Yeah,
it's awesome to just have this done.
Yeah, I mean, this is done. This track is done. I mean, this album is done. And the Pretty Cool is the first single that comes out on Friday. So, I mean, I'll put a link to it there's a Discord for this stream. I will be making everyone listen to it. I'll probably play it as like intro music on Friday. It's going to be.
Please do that.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And I think, are you going to put out like a single for the next couple of months? Is that the plan?
Yeah, so the schedule is
We're hitting them.
Yeah, we're hitting them hard, just every 2 weeks. So it'll be the 12th and then the 26th, and then we'll do the 12th and the 26th, and then the whole album will drop April 2nd.
Okay, awesome. Does that come out on a Bandcamp Friday?
I hope so. I mean,
let's see. Oh, it's the first Friday of the month. Yeah.
So it is?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool, yeah.
Oh, perfect. That's pretty fucking
That's
cool.
pretty cool.
Perfect thinking. Perfect accidental thinking. Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead. Let's just check out the end of this track. And then I'm going to transition back to the normal stream. So, Kaido, I'll check out your track. But here we go. Pretty cool.
So go and find yourself with somebody else, because you claim they know better than I could ever provide. I'm used from the inside, but it changes on whether or not.
I mean, what if you like guitar solos and huge sound and big old riffs? Can't find a better album. Cool. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to mention, or anything like that? Standard closing operating procedure.
No, kind of just like, yeah, thanks for having us, and like it was awesome to like hear the breakdown in your process. I love that you used like everything and kept like the natural raw stuff, and you didn't do a lot of like like, sampling and cutting and slicing, and it's just like, I don't know, like we tracked like a lot of some of these we did live, and so like it's awesome that you were able to keep that vibe and that organic feel, but also make it like professional and polished and like huge, because that was what we were going for. So it's we're ultimately just super stoked with how it turned out, and appreciate you putting the time and energy into it, and same with Summer.
Yeah,
Just
awesome.
just couldn't say enough nice things about the process and how it sounds.
Cool. Well, I hope that I get to see y'all in 2021. That's that's where I'm at.
Maybe like even an outdoor gig in Detroit or something. We'll play the shawarma place. We don't care.
Yes.
Cool.
Actually, that'd be
Bucharest. Coming to play Bucharest. Patio.
I just want shawarma.
We'll do a shawarma outdoor gig exchange in October.
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect. All right. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna transition into the normal stream. Thanks for stopping by. This is the first time we've had people on. I think it was really cool. I think everyone had fun. So I'll see you, I hope.
See ya. Thanks for hanging out in the chat, everybody. Appreciate you tuning in, and check out Magu. We're gonna be releasing this record, and hopefully come visit you overseas in Europe.
Yes.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I'm gonna hang up. I'll talk to you all later. See ya.
Sounds good. Peace, Scott. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye. Cool. That was super fun. We had fun. Kaido, are you still here?